What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going further into Unit 2 of my CySA, CompTIA CySA guide, and we're continuing on with threat intelligence, but more specifically, today we'll be taking a look at threat classification. And without further ado, let's get right into it. What is threat classification? Threat classification is a process of identifying and categorizing threats based on various criteria such as source, intent, impact, and method of attack. It helps organizations prioritize their cybersecurity defenses, allocate resources efficiently, and create appropriate incident response strategies. Why threat classification matters. Threat classification enables organizations to understand the nature and origin of threats, to anticipate the potential attack vectors and outcomes, implement tailored mitigation strategies, and to comply with industry standards such as NIST, ISO, and the PCI DSS, right? So we have to understand the nature of the threats so we can properly counter them, right? So that's why threat classification matters. Threat actors. Threat actors are individuals, groups, or entities that intentionally or unintentionally cause harm to digital systems, networks, or data. Understanding who the threat actors are and what motivates them is essential for developing effective security strategies. So we have cyber criminals. Their motivation is usually financial gain. Activities include ransomware, phishing, credit card theft, online fraud. The targets are usually individuals, corporations, e-commerce, financial institutions, and the tactics include malware distribution, credential theft, and data exfiltration. Nation-state actors, or APTs, right? Or rather, they use APTs, but sometimes people use, if you see something that says an APT, usually attribute it to nation-state actors. But anyways, nation-state actors, their motivation is usually espionage, political advantage, economic disruption, cyber warfare. The activities include advanced precision threats, surveillance, sabotage. Their targets are usually governments, defense contractors, infrastructure, high-tech industries, and the tactics are sophisticated malware, zero-day exploits, and long-term infiltration. Insiders, or insider threats. The motivation is usually due to disgruntlement, maybe a loss of a job or position, financial gain, negligence, coercion. The types of insiders or insider threats. You have the malicious insiders that steal data or sabotage systems intentionally, and you have the negligent ones that cause harm unintentionally by clicking a link, leaving some sensitive data or credentials out, stuff like that. And their targets are internal systems and sensitive data. The tactics include data leaks, unauthorized access, policy violations, etc., etc. Hacktivists. These include, their motivation is ideological or political causes. Pretty much, activities, website defacement, data leaks, DDoS attacks. Targets are government agencies, corporations, political groups. Tactics, public disruption, social engineering, coordinated attacks. And then you have your script kiddies. Motivation is ego, entertainment, challenge. Activities include use of pre-built tools without deep technical skill. Targets are low security websites, poorly configured systems. Tactics are simple exploits, defacements, basic DOS attacks. And then you have competitors or corporate espionage, and their motivations include competitive advantage. Activities usually theft of intellectual property, business strategies, or trade secrets. The targets are industrial rivals, and tactics are social engineering, bribery, infiltration. All right. So those are the threat actors. And now we're on threat research. Threat research is the process of gathering, analyzing, and interpreting information about existing and emerging threats to improve an organization's security posture. This intelligence-driven approach is essential for anticipating attacker behavior and staying ahead of cyber threats, right? The goals of threat research. It's meant to identify current attack trends and new malware strains, to track threat actors and campaigns, to understand vulnerabilities and their exploits, and to enrich threat intelligence feeds, right? Which is self-explanatory. And then the common sources of threat research is usually open source intelligence, or OSINT. You have your vendor threat feeds, your private commercial ones via like Palo Alto, FireEye, Cisco Talos, and stuff like that, places like that. You have your internal logs from the machines or your network infrastructure, or IT infrastructure rather, that you can collect from your SIMs or your IDS, IPS, firewalls, etc. You have your dark web monitoring, and you have threat reports. And the use cases of this threat research is for threat hunting, incident response, vulnerability prioritization, or security control tuning, right? So threat research is very, very, very important. It's pretty much one of the bedrocks of, identifying threats, seeing their behaviors, and how to counter them. But you need to have that raw data first, right? Threat modeling is a proactive security process to identify, enumerate, and prioritize potential threats to an application, system, or environment before an attack occurs. Right? So the purpose of threat modeling is to list possible attack vectors, to reduce attack surface and risk exposure, assessing adversary capability. And threat reputation is looking at the history or habit of the website actor, etc. So think of threat modeling as kind of like shadow boxing, but in cybersecurity, right? You might not actually know the exact nature of a threat, but through your threat research, which we talked about before, you get your information together, and then that way you can kind of make a fake scenario to where you can see, okay, this might happen, this is what we'll do in response, this is what we'll do to identify, this is what we'll do to isolate it, this is what we'll do to remedy it and exterminate the threat, and this is what we'll do to rebuild to normalcy, etc., etc. Or it could actually be a known, threat that you threat model against and stuff like that. But either way, I think of it as kind of shadow boxing for cybersecurity, in cybersecurity world rather. But on to the next one. And here we have different methods such as Stride, Dread, Pasta, and the kill chain via the MITRE attack, right? And each method is slightly different for different purposes. Like the kill chain might be more for, tactical, right? Stride is more laid out and more what's the word I'm looking for? And more descriptive, so on and so forth. So whatever is more comfortable for the analyst, they might, or whatever situation calls for, they might use different methods or a combination of the four. All right. I'll give you a couple more seconds to look at it, write it down. All right, let's go to the next one. Steps in threat modeling. So first, you're going to define the system or scope. What are we protecting? So that's the first things first. Then you're going to decompose the system, meaning you're going to break down the system into different components, different parts, right? To see where all the data goes, to see what components are part of the system, how they work together, and trust boundaries, right? Trust boundaries are basically like where, like say for instance, a trust boundary might be between, I don't know, the internet and your computer, right? Because data going into the internet is trusted from your computer, and it goes into the internet, but data coming from the internet to your computer might not be trustworthy, right? It's pretty much going from a known system to an unknown system, kind of, right? That's how at least that's how I think of it, right? Because there might be, from speaking from a perspective of, like, say, a particular system that you're looking at, there might be other systems that are connected to your system, like say your workstation, and your computer might trust another component on the same network, but it might not have the same trust to, like, say, a Google server or a ESPN server, if that makes sense, right? But going on, number 3, identify the threats. Self-explanatory. You prioritize the threats. Which threat is more pressing, and you go in that order, and you mitigate the threats, and then you validate that what you've done fixes the issue, and then you reassess, or you validate that the fixes that you do put out mitigate or stop the threats, and then you reassess to see if there's any other threats that are left. All right. Then threat research versus threat modeling, and then it goes into the different aspects and what they focus on. For example, threat research is understanding the real-world threats, where the modeling is more predicting and mitigating the theoretical threats. And you get your source of threat research from like feeds, intelligence, stuff like that. And from threat modeling, you might get it from, the internal architecture of your network or your IT infrastructure, etc., right? You can pause to kind of like write it down, get a good read on it. All right. And then the conclusion of this lesson is that threat research keeps organizations informed about real-world threats, enabling faster detection, response, and prevention, while threat modeling helps teams proactively design and build systems that anticipate and resist potential attacks. So, in short, threat research is pretty much doing your homework, studying the enemy that's out there or the threats that could threaten your systems. And threat modeling is pretty much your shadow boxing or your LARPing, for lack of a better term. Pretty much gearing yourself up to proactively set yourself up for success if that threat does come to pass, right? But anyways, guys, that's all I have for today. I apologize for the long gap in the lessons, but I'll try to get back on a regular schedule. Probably put another video on Saturday at the latest. And thanks you guys who's been supporting. And yeah, that's all I have for today, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.